Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 8th of June of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where according to my understanding of the situation, one of the most important updates has occurred. Several days ago, according to information we have, according to Ukrainian media, the Ukrainians attacked the M18 road, more precisely a bridge between Crimea and Kherson. And this morning, the pro-Ukrainian sources published this video where we can see at least that Ukrainians used 3 drones to attack the bridge. As a result of attack, the bridge was significantly damaged, according to pro-Russian sources, and Russians were forced to move their logistics from this area towards the western parts of Crimea. Russian recommended detours 50 kilometers away from the Dnipro River through Chapinka after the Chonhar road was damaged and closed to traffic. There is still the Henichesk road, but Russians will likely concentrate most logistics through Armyansk. Crimea might face a drone blockade this summer. So these are the statements and articles that were published by pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian sources after the Ukrainians attacked the bridge along the M18 road. According to information we have, the Ukrainians were using a new type of drones. And this is the video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see the moments when the Ukrainians were launching the Behemoth drone to attack the bridge in the northern parts of Crimea. So as I told you, today one of the most important updates has happened, but this is not the most important or one of the most important. The most important thing is the most important events are events that happened right after. So the thing is that since the beginning of the special military operation, the Russians haven't attacked the most important bridges through the territory of Ukraine. We are talking about the bridges that are located along the river of Dnipro. For some reason, the Russians decided not to attack these bridges, and probably nobody understands why exactly the Russians made this decision. But the thing is that due to the fact that the Ukrainians attacked the bridge along M18 road, with this attack, basically the Ukrainians gave the Russians the green light to attack bridges across Ukraine. And starting of the 8th of June of 2026, we received a lot of updates on this matter. According to different sources, this morning, somewhere around at 11 a.m. of the 8th of June of 2026, Su-34s and Su-35s groups were moving from Crimea in the direction of the southwestern parts of Odessa. So the Russians, using their aircraft, began moving in the direction of Odessa through the Black Sea, through the northwestern parts of the Black Sea. And somewhere from this point, the Russians launched missiles. And according to information we have, the Russians launched missiles in the direction of the city by the name of ZATOKA. The sources reported about bombs or missiles that were launched. Several sources stated that the Russians used bombs. Several sources reported that the Russians used Ha-59, Ha-69 cruise missiles. And several hours later, we start receiving reports about explosions on the territory or around the settlement of ZATOKA, but without confirmations, without proofs, without pictures to understand what exactly the Russians were attacking. And this evening we start receiving first details. But before we move to details, I would like to point your attention that the southwestern parts of Ukraine is one of the most important parts of Ukraine, because this part is connected to the sea, to the Black Sea, to the international waters. There are lots of towns and cities that has port infrastructure. The city of Odessa, the settlement of Chernomorsk, the settlement of Zlatoka, and the settlement of Chernomorsk, Alexandrovka, and of course there are lots of towns along the river of Dunabi that also has port infrastructure, and these towns are also connected with the Black Sea, which means that these towns are connected with the international waters, and the Ukrainians are able to use this infrastructure first of all to receive military arms, and to export some cargoes. So that is why if the Russians are able to cut the southwestern parts of Ukraine, then of course the Ukrainians will start suffering huge problems. But the problem is for the Ukrainians, the problem is that the most southwestern parts of Ukraine is connected with the mainland just through 2 territories. The first territory is the city of Zatoka and the Zatoka bridge, this one. And the second territory is the settlement of Mayaki and the bridge around the settlement of Mayaki. And if you remember, several days ago, we received a report that the Russians attacked the settlement of Mayaki, more precisely, the Russians attacked this bridge. This information was published on the 6th of June of 2026, so basically 2 days ago. The sources reported that the Russians used Iskander missile, and as a result of attack, the Russians destroyed the bridge that the Ukrainians began construction of. And as of the 8th of June of 2026, we don't know for sure whether the Russians managed to destroy or to damage this bridge. We just know that there was a fire anomaly that was recorded through the territory. And today, which means that the Russians attacked one of the northern logistic line between the southwestern parts of Odessa region and the main Ukraine. And today, according to information we have, the Russians launched several bombs in the direction of the settlement of ZATOKA. And during the day, we start receiving first updates on this matter, and this is the first report. And according to this report, as you can see, right after the Russians attacked the territory, several fire anomalies were recorded, and according to the map of these fire anomalies were recorded through this territory and also through the territory of this bridge. Later we received another picture, this one, and here we can see the ZATOKA bridge. This is the ZATOKA bridge, and here we can see a ship, abandoned ship that was abandoned by the Ukrainians with the purpose to serve as defense lines. So this is the ship you have just seen on this picture. The Ukrainians established this ship in this area with one purpose: not to allow the Russians to use their navy drones to attack the ZATOKA bridge, because this is something like a wall that the Russians can pass by or something like this. And as you can see, according to this report, the Russians attacked the ship, the Russians attacked this defense layer with the purpose probably to destroy it completely and to clear the way and to clear the paths and roads towards the bridge itself. And this explosion took place today, right after we received reports about Russian aircrafts that were flying over the Black Sea. And right before I started making this video, we received another update on this matter, and here we can see a moment of Iskander M strike in ZATOKA, Odessa region. So after the Russians used their Su-34s and Su-35s to attack the ZATOKA bridge and the area around, several hours later, somewhere at 6 or 7 p.m. of the 8th of June of 2026, the Russians also use Iskander-M missiles, most likely with the same purpose, either to destroy the ship or to destroy the bridge, or at least to damage the bridge, so the Ukrainians were not able to use this bridge for the logistic purposes. So this is the most important thing, and we need to understand that the Russians attacked this ZATOKA bridge right after the Ukrainians attacked the Crimean bridge, which connects Crimea itself with the Kherson region. The Russians haven't been attacking this bridge until the Ukrainians haven't been attacking this bridge. But due to the fact that the Ukrainians attacked this bridge and basically ruined or worsened the logistics of Crimea, the Russians attacked the ZATOKA bridge, and most likely the Russians will not stop until they destroy the bridge completely. And if it happens, then of course the Ukrainians will start suffering huge problems with logistics. First of all, from the southwestern part, from Romania, from the Black Sea, and the Ukrainians receive lots of important goods, lots of important things, military things for the armed forces of Ukraine. If it happens, then the Ukrainians would be forced either to accept something like a bridge truce between Russians and the Ukrainians, so they will not attack each other, or the Ukrainians would be forced to reroute their logistics through the state of Poland or through the northern parts of Romania, which obviously will increase the distances and will increase the logistic costs. Now let's move further and let's discuss and let's talk about more strikes that were carried out by Russians. The Russians attacked the settlement of Bashtanka. This morning we received this video. Here we can see an object of probably energy or chemical infrastructure that was destroyed by Russians as a result of a Gerань drone strike. Later we received a video from the settlement of Apostolova. Here we can see a bus station or car wash station that was damaged and destroyed by Russians. Here we have the city of Dnipro. Another parking site was destroyed as a result of attack. Now we are moving to the city of Pavlograd. As for these territories, As for the city and the territory around, we have received lots of important updates. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians used dozens of drones to attack the city, and the sources reported that the Russians destroyed a gas station. We have already discussed this report during the previous update, but without videos that can confirm this. Later, several hours later, we received this video. Here we can see how civilians were moving along the road, along M30 road, and we can see how a driver was filming the current status of this gas station, and as you can see, the gas station was completely destroyed. Here we have the same gas station, but from another angle, but from another car. As you can see, here we have the video of the moment when the fire crews managed to extinguish the fire and to stabilize the situation. So one thing is clear, that this gas station was significantly damaged by Russians, and as we discussed, as we've been discussing since the beginning of April, almost every single day we receive an update about one or two, maybe even 3 gas stations destroyed by Russians. As of the previous 24 hours, gas stations were destroyed just in the area of the settlement of Poltava. But if you remember, yesterday during the 7th of June, we received a report that 2 gas stations through the northern parts of Ukraine were destroyed. The Russians are doing this just with one purpose: not to allow the Ukrainians to use trucks to deploy drones on the territory of Russia. And even when talking about this new type of drones that the Ukrainians began using, even these drones the Ukrainians launch using trucks. As you can see in this video, we can see a truck, and if you use truck, then you need to fuel. If you need fuel, then you need gas stations. If you need gas stations, then the Russians will come for them. Now let's move further. As for the northern directions, during the previous 24 hours, the most important update we received from the settlement of Kharkiv. As we discussed, the Russians destroyed this warehouse. This is one of the most important targets for Russians: gas stations, warehouses, fuel trucks, and just trucks. And of course, as of the beginning of the 8th of June, as we discussed, the fire crews also a primary and priority target for Russians. The Russians attacked these crews with the purpose not to allow the Ukrainians to stabilize the situation, because the Ukrainians managed to collect significant expertise and experience in this sphere to stabilize and to extinguish the fire. And this is one of the reasons why the Russians are not able to achieve significant results with their attacks, because these fire crews are able to come very fast to this or that position and to minimize the losses, which is a very important situation when talking about the eastern part of Ukraine and the southern parts of Ukraine along the line of combat contact.
Denne norske nervepude fjerner kroniske smerter ved at fjerne trykket på kritiske nerver. Hvorfor skifter folk med...
As for the Ukrainian strikes, the most important thing is that during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians launched 2 waves of attacks. The first one was launched yesterday in the evening, and the Ukrainians used 250 drones, and they were attacking the southern regions of Russia. And as a result of this attack, the Ukrainians managed to deal significant damage to an object of energy infrastructure in the area of the settlement of Novorossiysk. We are talking about these fuel tanks. This video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources and by pro-Russian sources, and here we can see black smoke over the city. And as a result of attack, probably several tanks of this object of energy infrastructure were destroyed. And the most important thing is that several tanks were destroyed, and the Russians still haven't managed to stabilize the situation in the area of the settlement of Ust-Labinsk, which is located a bit further in the northeastern direction from the city of Novorossiysk. Here we see that there is still a fire in this area, and the Russians are not able, as of now, to stabilize or to extinguish the fire. And these 2 towns are located very close to each other, and the Russians use these 2 objects of energy infrastructure to supply the Crimea. Now let's move to the city of Belgorod. The Russians stated that during the previous 24 hours they destroyed more than 700 drones, and lots of drones were flying through the Belgorod direction. And today we received a report about a very heavy explosion on the territory of this region. And these pictures and these videos were published by different sources. As you can see, a very big explosion took place on the territory of the region. And the sources reported report that the Russians mistakenly dropped bombs, and these bombs fell on the territory of Belgorod region, and then these explosions occurred, but later sources reported that an ammo depot was destroyed. But the main problem is that there were no reports, no warnings about missiles moving in this direction. Maybe the Ukrainians use cruise missiles of the Western production, because you know that yesterday Zelensky arrived in the United Kingdom, where he had meeting with European leaders like President of France, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and Chancellor of Germany. And maybe during these meetings they gave him, or they authorized him, Zelensky, first of all, they authorized Zelensky to use long-range missiles to attack deep inside of the territory of Russia. Who knows? Maybe this explosion is the consequences of the Storm Shadow missile use by the Ukrainian side. Who knows? Maybe the Russians haven't managed even to record this missile in the sky. So everything is possible. Maybe this is the consequences of the Ukrainian ballistic missile attack. If you remember, Zelensky promised that in coming days Ukraine is going to start using ballistic missiles in significant numbers. Maybe this is the first attack. Who knows? Anyway, sooner or later we will understand what is happening, and Russians will give us additional details, or pro-Ukrainians will give us the same details as well. Another important episode took place in the northern parts, to the north of Ukraine, on the territory of Bryansk region. In this video we can see how the Ukrainians were using a drone to attack a train that was moving fuel probably, or some cargo. And as a result of attack, this train was damaged, and the pro-Russian sources reported about casualties among civilians, and a driver of this train, probably according to pro-Russian sources, was damaged. After all these attacks, the Russians once again repeated that it is difficult to imagine how negotiations with the Kiev regime could take place at this point. The Russians once again rejected any negotiations with the Ukrainian side.
Bilka to go. Leveret til døren eller klar til afhentning.
Hvis du på bare 2 minutter kan få estimeret værdien af din bolig.
Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the ground. And these days, the most important updates are coming from the city of Konstantinovka. Today, the map has been adjusted once again. And today, a lot of pro-Russian sources, a lot of pro-Ukrainian sources reported that indeed the battle for the city of Konstantinovka is coming to the logical end. Today, according to the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, the Russians have captured the settlement of Molocharka. Based on the report published by pro-Russian sources, we have adjusted the map. Furthermore, today a very reliable pro-Russian source stated that the Minister of Defense and the group of forces south are preparing to announce control over the city. That's the title of the city starts with the letter of K, so probably the city of Konstantinovka. So which means that this is going to happen within the next 2 weeks, 1 week or so, maybe even during this week. The Russians will announce complete control. Probably the Russians will announce this when they let's say get to this line. The Russians most likely will not take the entire city under complete control to make this announcement, but this is going to happen, and this is going to happen very soon. Furthermore, this is not the only place where the Russians managed to breach the Ukraine defense through the final battle of the Donbas occupation. Today, we start receiving these days lots of updates from the northern Slaviansk direction, from the cities like Liman and the Svetogorsk. According to several very reliable pro-Russian sources, as of the end of the 8th of June of 2026, the Russians have already established complete control over these territories. So everything that right now I'm covering with the red area is the territories that were captured by Russians these days, probably not these days, but have been captured by Russians since the beginning of April or something like this, which means that this is the current picture, and the Ukrainians have control only over the most western parts, and the Ukrainians use the roads to the west with the purpose to supply their contingent through the settlement of Mayaki. Another important thing that several pro-Russian very reliable sources also stated, that a very critical situation is brewing for the Ukrainians to the north of the settlement of Svetogorsk, and several pro-Russian sources reported that This is the situation in the area of the settlement of Svetogorsk. The Russians have established complete control over the northern parts of the settlement. The Ukrainians were forced to fall back, and the Russians continue advancing from the northern parts of the settlement in the southern direction with the purpose to establish complete control. So as you can see, the Ukrainians are about to get a breakthrough, not just through the city of Konstantinivka, but also through the northern Slaviansk direction. And all these things are telling us about one thing, that's probably the things through the Slaviansk-Druzhkovka agglomeration may start developing much faster than Zelensky promised, much faster than in 2026 and 2027. So as you can see, the situation is very critical, and probably this is the reason why Zelensky ordered to begin construction of fortifications through Odessa region, because probably Zelensky, Syrsky, and the Ukrainian authorities and the Western countries understand that when the Russians finish the battle for Donbas, the Russians will begin battle for either the city of Odessa or the city of Kharkiv or the city of Sumy. As for the northern directions, during the previous day, additional changes were recorded through the settlement of Agrimovka. These are the changes on the ground. The group of forces north reported that the Russians advancing in this area and continue fighting for this territory. As for the northern Kupiansk direction, we also have changes. Today, pro-Russian sources published this video where we can see how Russian troops were moving through the settlement of Kupiansk, through its southern micro-districts like Zaskolie and so on. And this video confirms additional positions of Russians through this area, and based on this video we have adjusted the map. So the battle for the river of Oskol is coming to the logical end as well, and the Russians, it seems, are regrouping before beginning of the middle summer offensive operation. And that's it for today. The military